Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Lots of stories today, but I do, as you know, like to start the day with something light, something amusing. And sometimes I can't do it and it's a very heavy start. But no, today we've got a nice light story, which I do hope that you'll enjoy. And indeed, I hope you'll enjoy it so much you'll hit that subscribe button. Very, very important, helps the channel massively. But apparently, Lorna Slater has been going into the cairngorms, out into the wild, and annoying farmers by basically releasing her beaver. You couldn't make it up. These stories write themselves, don't they? Nice beaver, Lorna. But apparently this isn't at all popular with the farmers. Once you introduce things like this into the wild, all sorts of chaos happens. But of course, for Lorna, she thinks that going out there and opening and exposing beaver to the environment is a good thing. But apparently not so. But we'll take a look at the story and just see what's going on with Lorna Slater's beaver issue. Here goes. So, Lorna Slater's beaver release in the cairngorms enrages farmers who say they've been stonewalled. Lorna, of course, has a great deal to do with Stonewall. They like to push the policies, I suppose. And if one of those policies is to release beaver into the wild, who am I to stop them? But it's like anything. When you release an animal that hasn't been in an environment for, in this case, 400 years, it will have a major effect on the local ecology. Invasive species always damage the indigenous species. You can see that whenever any kind of foreign invader comes in, the indigenous species always do very, very badly. One only has to look at rabbits and cane toads in Australia as an example of that, or just even in human history, when Europeans went to North America, the indigenous Indians didn't do very well then either. And one, of course, only has to look at the current invasion to see that the local people aren't going to do very well with this current invasion of an alien species, totally different. So there are comparisons between Lorna Slater releasing beavers and society in general. It goes to show you should never allow foreign invaders into an ecosystem. It's very bad. And these farmers know this, of course, and they're fighting against it. They've been told that nobody knows what they're doing. Do you think really Lorna Slater is fully compo mentis and aware of what damage this could cause? The beavers going around eating all these trees, felling them, blocking rivers, changing the course, creating lakes, damming them. It will cause chaos and danger because for 400 years there haven't been beavers. How does she think this is going to work? In any sort of positive way. Oh yes, oh look, we're increasing the biodiversity of the cairngorms, but at what cost? Farmers and crofters say they feel unheard after the Cairngorms National Park Authority pushed ahead with the reintroduction of beavers after 400 years, despite their concerns. 400 years of maintaining the land. All the creatures that currently live there never experienced beavers, haven't evolved, co-evolved with the beavers. The beavers will change things. It may even lead to the extinction of several creatures. But hey, these experts apparently know all this. Experts like Lorna Slater, let me go there and uncage and unrelease, and release the beaver. Farmers have out a concern that is gnawing at them. The return of beavers to the wild. The animals have been reintroduced to the cairngorms after 4 centuries in a project overseen by Scottish Green Minister Lorna Slater. Now, given her history of successes at everything she's ever done, this is bound to be fantastic. Or something. The Spey Crofters and Farmers Group, which has more than 50 members stretching from Lagan to Cromdale and Strathspey, has claimed the Cairngorms National Park Authority has ridden roughshod over its views. It has fears over who will pick up the bills for damage to riverbanks and for crop losses in the longer term once the beaver damage mitigation plan comes to an end in 2026 or 2028. CNPA officials are confident such costs will be covered nationally by agricultural grants once reforms come in during 2026. But the crofters and farmers said there's no guarantees. Grants, the same grants that were handed out by Westminster to the SNP, who then did not hand them over to the farmers. And they say they're very confident that they'll get these grants. No, they won't. The SNP will sell these things on and spend them elsewhere. Meanwhile, fat little beavers released by fat little Canadians will continue to cause damage, destroy the environment, dig up trees, alter the courses of rivers, cause the deaths of thousands upon thousands of animals, remove areas where these things grow, flood. But hey, experts like Lorna Slater say it's a good thing, and so therefore it must be a good thing. What a load of rubbish. The Spey Crofters and Farmers Group held 2 meetings recently with CNPA representatives to thrash out details on minimising impacts on land, but fell unheard. And as the local beaver population grows, it has said problems and associated costs will rise. Beavers now are effectively a foreign invading pest species. Yes, had they been there from day one and co-evolved and lived on the land for the last 400 years, different matter. But it has been that long. They are now an invasive, damaging species, and we've seen what happens when foreign species are introduced into indigenous populations. It's always damaging to the indigenous populations. A spokesman said, "We have been stonewalled on 2 key points. We had sought a delay to the release of the beavers until we reached an agreement on the outstanding points of concern on how economic impacts are managed. And we also want an extension to the monitoring and mitigation scheme, which the CNPA has drawn up beyond 2028. Beavers will be with us well beyond that time, unless, of course, you get the trappers out and end the beavers." The CNPA has upgraded the National Beaver Mitigation Plan to something that works in the local area. But of importance is that this is only being promised for initially 4 years and possibly up to 6, whereas beaver release is for life and the population will grow, doing both good work and potentially serious damage to infrastructure. So, of course, all the beavers do is eat these trees, predominantly vegetarian. They'll eat insects and snails and things as well occasionally, but predominantly they're vegetarian. But they dam these. They dam the rivers with they cut down the trees, wiping out the trees, damaging the soil integrity. Because obviously it's the trees holding the soil together. It can cause for landslides, wash away, things like that. That then can go into the rivers and things further downstream. It can change the whole chemistry of water, damaging fish stocks further down. You're damming rivers upstream, which can cause a big downstream, shortage of water. That again causes changes. You're building lakes where lakes previously weren't. You can lead to flooding. There's all sorts of environmental changes that are happening that no one can foresee because of chaos. It is a chaotic system, and you cannot mitigate against chaos. But these people seem to think that they can. But they're politicians. And what do they know? Well, we know what they know. Bugger all. Anyway, they said, in the right place, beavers do have a positive role with regards to flood management. Yeah, they manage it by creating floods. Climate change and biodiversity. Says who? Remember, this is politicians speaking. They're not experts on this stuff. They're not environmentalists. They're not beaver experts. They don't know the damage that beavers can do. Now, I'm not saying that beavers are necessarily all bad or evil. I'm saying that they are now an invasive species that will cause major ecological change. That is without doubt. But nobody can say whether it's good, whether it's bad, or even what changes will be made. You need further studies. You need to look in other parts of the world where beavers have been reintroduced after that length of time. See the changes. See the loss of other animals. Anyway, the historic moment arrived last Monday when Lorna Slater went out into Rothiemurchus near Aviemore in Inverness, one of the few words that has 3 consecutive S's. And on the wildland Cairngorms Limited Land, with Miss Slater, the Minister for Green Skills, Circular Economy and Biodiversity. And her job as a biodiversity minister is to reduce biodiversity, it seems. She was there offering a helping hand and releasing her beaver. A pair of Eurasian beavers was freed at both sites with officials from the CNPA and the Beaver Trust alongside land managers. Now, if you're only releasing a couple of pairs, I've got to say, from a genetic point of view, that's not very good. You're going to have a very limited genetic diversity on that. That's going to lead to a lot of inbreeding, isn't it? That's never good. Anyway, Anne Kirk, who farms at Mains of Kerr Moray, said, I have had to answer many phone calls from depressed farmers, but none like those we've received about the beavers. We have seen bills amounting to £1.8 million worth in damage to farmland in Tayside, with very little compensation to repair the banks or loss of crops. The CNPA has a mitigation scheme until 2028, but what happens after that? I tell you what happens after that. People go out with shotguns, and then there'll be no more beavers. That's what's going to happen. They are effectively setting up these beavers to be shot, because farmers are going to go, I'm not losing £1.8 million worth of, crops and damage and costs. And then all of a sudden, poor little beaver will suddenly be X little beaver. And it isn't going to be a good idea. And of course, if you're changing all the chemistry of the water, you've got to think of further downstream and all the salmon farmers. They'll lose millions, billions over time. All because Lorna Slater wants to release her beavers. Coming up. You have to wonder why these people do these things. They're obviously very stupid. We know how stupid, we know how useless Lorna Slater is. We know she fails in every single policy she's ever attended. And do you think reintroduction of what is effectively an alien species into an ecology that hasn't got the experience of having it, that there will be chaotic change that no one can predict, that will be majorly affected, not just the animals and the people and the creatures that live there, but the economy of the entire place, where there is mitigation for a few years, but after that you're on the good graces of whatever government is in there, being willing to hand over millions of pounds of money going forward just to pay for beaver exposure. It's not going to happen, is it? They can't even hand over the money they're given now. What guarantee is there that these farmers will get anything in the future? It's a recipe for disaster. It hasn't been thought out. Now, I'm not an expert, and that's the whole point. I'm not an expert, and I know I'm not an expert, but I'm clever enough to know that you need to study it further. You need to know what is going on, and you need to have a plan in place to be able to deal with the beavers should the damage be such that you realise what a bad idea it is to introduce a foreign invasive species. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. That's the first one out of the way. Nice and easy, isn't it? But anyway, I'll finish that one, round off, and we'll just say that thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and let's hope Lorna doesn't release any more beaver. Bye.